I'm really excited about this one that we're going to overhaul next. This is a Crawford brand watch that was made back in the 1960s, so it's got my name on it. I recently discovered that Crawford was a brand of watches made in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and it was an American company that imported the watches from Switzerland with their name on them. And I think this watch here may have actually been made by the same original manufacturer that made the Andre Bouchard watch that I overhauled recently, because it has the same case, the same movement, and a lot of it just looks like it came from the same operation. So it'll be interesting to work on, since I've already worked on the same sort of movement already. This will be easier to do than the other one was. And like I said, it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool to have a watch with my name on it. So I'm excited to get this one worked on and operating properly so that I can wear it. Okay, here's the Crawford watch on the Timegrapher. I've got it fully wound up and running. So let's see what our numbers are. And here we see some pretty awful numbers. Negative 892 seconds per day, 209 degrees of amplitude, and 3.3 milliseconds of beat error. When you've got a rate that's that far off and relatively low amplitude, you can't just correct this out by changing the regulator settings. We're going to have to tear this down, clean it, relubricate it, reassemble it, and then adjust everything. First thing we're going to do is take the case back off, and this is a standard screw-on case back. Here's our movement. Now this one here has the same movement holder too that the Andre Bouchard watch had, but this one has a rubber gasket around it for waterproofing, which is missing from the other watch. And I suspect it had one too, having seen this in here, because the movement holder was kind of loose in the other watch. So I'm going to try to find a gasket for it. It has the same AS 1187 movement that the other watch had, except that this one is marked differently. The other one was marked Hyde Park Watch Company, which was another American company that imported Swiss watches and put their name on it. This one says that it's made by Grualco, which stood for Grenchen Watch Company. Grenchen's a city in Switzerland where a lot of watches are manufactured. And of course, Grualco didn't make the movement. It's an Adolf Schild movement, but they've got their name on it here. So I don't know if Grualco is who actually made these watches or what. They may have been the original manufacturers for Crawford and for the Andre Bouchard watch, which was a store brand for a department store. So let's see if we can get this out of here. We're going to have to take out the movement holder, and I'm not sure how that gasket comes out with it. Oh, it just lifts right out. Okay. And there is a rubber gasket here. It looks like, yeah, it's pretty dried out. We'll need to get a new one, I think. Now, the next thing we need to do is get the movement out of the case. And in order to do that, we're going to have to remove the stem first. And to do that, we have to loosen the stem screw, which is this screw right here. That's the retaining screw for the stem. So we need to take that out, and then we can pull the stem, and then the movement will drop out. And if I remember from the other watch, I believe the yellow colored screwdriver, they're color coded for size, is the correct one for this. We don't want to take this screw all the way out because it also holds part of the keyless works in on the other side of the movement, and we don't want that to fall out. So we just want to loosen it enough that we can get the stem out. If you take the screw all the way out, it makes the detent lever for the keyless works fall out. Now here we go. There's our stem. Now that we have the stem out, we can just pick this up and put the cushion under it, turn it over, and lift the case off. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to get the hands off. To remove the hands, we're going to put one of these nice little pieces of plastic over the dial to protect the dial and the hands from being damaged by the hand levers. Now we slip these underneath the bottom. Underneath the bottom hand, which is the hour hand. And then gently pull up on both of them at the same time. We push down on them, and that pops the hands upward. There we go. I think they've all come off. Using the plastic protects the dial, and it protects the hands, and it keeps them from flying up in the air when they pop off, which can happen if you are a little too energetic with it. Next thing we need to do is remove the dial, and that's done by removing the two dial screws. There's two of them screwed into the edge of the movement. One of them is right there, and the other is on the other side of the movement. Right there. So we're going to remove those, and then the dial should lift right off. Got the dial screws out. Let's see if we can lift the dial now. You may be kind of stuck to it because a lot of times these, having been on there for many years, are hard to lift off because they get stuck on by oils and grease and stuff that have leaked onto them. Actually, this one's coming off very easily. The one on the Bouchard watch was a little harder. I had to kind of pry it off. Yeah, there we go, right off. And there we go. Watch dials generally have 2 dial feet sticking down from the bottom of them that go into the base plate of the movement to hold them on. So there's our face. Very beautiful watch face. I love the way this looks. Before we can take apart anything else on it, we need to remove the cannon pinion. And to get to that, we have to remove the dial washer. And then the hour wheel. The hour wheel is what carries the hour hand. And then now we have the cannon pinion here, and that's what carries the minute hand. Now before we take that out, we need to remove the minute wheel here also, because sometimes pulling the cannon pinion can damage the minute wheel. So it's better to remove the minute wheel first. To get the minute wheel out, we're going to have to remove these parts of the keyless works here. This is the set bridge, and this has, it's a metal plate that holds down some of the gears and the parts for the keyless works, but it also has this spring that comes over here. It's called the detent spring that provides the detent for when you pull the stem in and out, where it locks into place in the out position and the in position for winding mode and time setting mode. So we need to remove this first, and then we can get the minute wheel out of there. I removed the 2 screws that hold the set bridge and the detent spring unit, so let's go ahead and lift that off. Now here's our minute wheel. Now before I take the cannon pinion out, I'm going to go ahead and remove the rest of the keyless works here, because this stuff, there's a little spring in here that can fly out and get lost, so I want to take that off before we do anything else. And I'm going to do that off camera because I need to be able to kind of look at it closely and hold it down with one finger while I'm pulling it out with the tweezers. And what I'm trying to get out is this little spring right here that goes against the back of, this is called the yoke, this long rod here. This thing here is called the yoke, and that's what pushes the clutch forward and backward to switch between winding mode and time setting mode, and the spring here pushes up against it, and we need to take it out. It's like shaped like a sort of candy cane. So I'm going to pull that out first, and then I can remove the yoke. This is the detent lever, and this is held on by that screw on the other side of the movement that we loosen to take the stem out, so it won't come out right away. But I want to get these 2 things out of here so we don't lose that spring. Alright, I've got the yoke spring loosened, so I'm going to go ahead and lift it off of here. And then the yoke itself will come out easily now too, because it didn't have the spring holding it in place. We need to lift it from this side here where it rides over this pin sticking up, because this end of it here sticks into the movement underneath this plate here. There's a groove that's machined into that the end of it sticks into. So you can't lift it from this side, it won't come out. Lift it up from the end with where it goes over the rod, or over the pen, and lift it right out. The only thing that's left in the keyless works is the clutch, the winding pinion, and the detent lever. The detent lever we're going to leave in there because it's held on by that screw on the other side of the movement, but I'm going to go ahead and lift the clutch out now. There's the clutch. And then the winding pinion is this gear that sticks up here vertically. It should lift right out as well. So that's the entire keyless works except for the detent lever, and as I said, we'll get that off later. This is the cannon pinion. This sticks onto the bottom of the center wheel column, and so we need to get this off before we can take off the drivetrain on the other side of the movement. And the way we're going to do that is with a pen vise. I think I'm actually going to turn the movement over and take the 4th wheel out first. The 4th wheel's stem goes all the way down through the middle of the stem for the center wheel and sticks out through the middle of that, and that's that little thin one that's in the middle there sticking out, and that's what the second hand rides on. I'm afraid if I pull the cannon pinion, I may accidentally bend that, so I'm going to take that out first and then come back over here and do the cannon pinion. To get to the 4th wheel, I've got to remove the train bridge, and it's held on by 3 screws, 2 of them on this side and 1 on this side. There's also a tiny little cap jewel on top of here that we need to take out, and I've taken out the screws for all these things. The cap jewel is for the top of the escape wheel. There's the movement with the train bridge removed. And what we're trying to get out here is the wheel that's right in the center. That's actually the 4th wheel, and it's right above the center wheel. The center wheel has its own bridge underneath that holds it in place. So I'm going to go ahead and lift that out. Okay, I've lifted out the 4th wheel from the center there, and I'm going to go ahead and take out this other wheel too. That's our 3rd wheel. So we can go ahead and take it out while we're here. Before we can take out the center wheel, we're going to have to turn it over and take the cannon pinion off though. The escape wheel is down here too, and we can't take it off until we get this bridge off because it's kind of partially obscuring it. So I'm going to turn it over and take off the cannon pinion. Then we can take these two screws out and lift off the center wheel bridge. And then we can remove the center wheel, which you can see down here underneath it. This is the cannon pinion here. And we're going to take it off using a pen vise. I'm going to tighten the pen vice's jaws around the tube at the top of the cannon pinion. And then just pull it straight off. You want to be careful when you pull it off not to pull it off at an angle, because you might bend the center wheel post, which is what the cannon pinion rides on. But it's just held on by friction, so it'll pop right off. Okay, I've got the pen vice's jaws tightened around the cannon pinion. I'm just going to pull it off. Just like that. It comes right off. And you can see the center wheel post then. Now we can take the center wheel off, which we do on the other side of the movement here. Before I can remove the center wheel, I need to remove the ratchet wheel because it covers this part of the center wheel. So I'm going to go ahead and take off the ratchet wheel, the click, and the crown wheel. I've loosened the screws for the ratchet wheel and the click wheel, or the ratchet wheel and the crown wheel. Now the two screws for them look very, very similar to each other, but they're actually very, very different. The difference is that the screw that holds on the ratchet wheel is just an ordinary screw, just with a really wide head to hold the wheel in place. But the screw for the crown wheel is a left-handed screw, meaning that you turn it the opposite direction you would normally turn a screw for loosening and tightening. Normally, to loosen a regular screw, like the one used for the ratchet wheel, you would turn the screw counterclockwise to loosen it, and you would turn it clockwise to tighten it. That's a normal screw. Left-handed screws have to be turned clockwise to loosen and counterclockwise to tighten. And that's important to remember, because if you've got one of these on here and you need to remove it, and you try turning it counterclockwise to loosen it like a normal screw, you're actually going to be tightening it, and if you force it, thinking that, oh, it's just a little tight, you'll strip the threads on it. So you have to be very careful when you do that. Virtually all watches have a left-handed screw on their crown wheel. The reason for that is when you turn the watch's crown to wind the watch, the crown wheel turns counterclockwise. And as it turns counterclockwise, then it turns the ratchet wheel clockwise, which winds the mainspring. If you had a regular screw on here holding a wheel that turned counterclockwise, that motion of the wheel underneath the screw could actually loosen the screw and make it fall out. And so to prevent that from happening, they use that left-handed screw, which has to be tightened, or which has to be loosened by turning it clockwise. And so the counterclockwise movement of the ratchet wheel actually keeps the screw tight. You have to be so careful with these little screws that they don't fly away when you're trying to pick them up with the tweezers. And that screw is an easy one to pick up compared to some of them in this movement that are minuscule. Let's see if we can get the wheels out of here. I need to take the click out too, and the click spring. The click spring is this little spring that goes in here. It's kind of shaped like a cane, just like the yoke spring on the other side, except this one is smaller and thinner. There we go, I got that loosened. What I did to loosen the spring was I held a finger over the end that has the curved end, and then I slipped a screwdriver under the other end and popped it up while my finger was still over it. That loosened it from its compressed state, and then I was able to just leave it there like that until I pick it up with the tweezers. And I've already removed the click. So next thing we can do is remove these two screws for the center wheel bridge, and then we can remove the center wheel. I've taken out the two center wheel bridge screws. Now to loosen this, I'm going to have to kind of pry it up a little bit with a screwdriver. The movement has under some of these bridges that have to be pulled up. I'm not sure if you can see it there, but you can see there's little points where you can stick a screwdriver in to loosen it up like that. And so that's what we're going to have to do to get it off, because it's stuck down there. But you have to be real careful not to pop it up too hard, because you might bend the pivots on the wheels when you do that. So this is something that has to be done kind of delicately. I'm going to do a little bit on one side, a little bit on the other. Okay, that side's already pretty loose, so let's see if we can get the rest of this side up. There we go. And then the center wheel should just lift right out. It's not a good idea to lift it by its stem, because it might bend it, so we'll lift it by one of its little arms here. And it does not want to come out. Let's see if we can lift it this way. There we go. Now we need to remove the mainspring bridge and then the mainspring barrel. And the mainspring bridge is held on by 3 screws, so we'll go ahead and take those off. I've removed the 3 barrel bridge screws, and now I can loosen it, and I'm going to have to pry it up using the pry points provided along the edge of it, just like I did with the with the other bridges. This one you don't have to be so concerned about breaking pivots because the pivots for the mainspring barrel are very thick and strong. Okay, there's two things we're going to take out here. One is the mainspring barrel itself, which just lifts out. And then the other thing is the screw right here that we had to loosen to take out the stem. We can get that out now because the mainspring barrel bridge actually, the barrel bridge actually sits over the top of this, so you can't totally take it out when the barrel bridge is in place. So we can, now that the barrel bridge is off, we can finish loosening it, and then there's our escape wheel just fell out. There's the escape wheel that fell out when I turned the movement over. I forgot to pull it out after I took off the other drivetrain components. When we take out that retaining screw on the top of the movement that's been revealed by the removal of the barrel bridge, the detent lever here will fall out the bottom too when I take that out. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. Go ahead and loosen that screw. Got the screw loosened and it should lift right out now. The hole that it goes into in the main plate's not actually threaded. It just threads into the detent lever, which fell out when we loosened it, just like I said it would. So we've got that here. Now, I want to open up the mainspring barrel because I want to see the condition of the mainspring. On the Andre Bouchard watch that had the same movement, the mainspring in it was badly set into a deep spiral, and so it was unusable, and I replaced it, and I'm probably going to do the same with this one. One side of the mainspring barrel has a lid on it, and you can see a little notch there that's made so you can stick a tool in to loosen it. I've never been successful at opening them using a screwdriver or any kind of tool stuck in there without messing it up or scratching it. You'll notice that there's a pivot sticking out of the bottom and one sticking out of the top. Those are the barrel arbor. And so what we're going to do is we're going to set it on the table and we're going to push down on it gently, and the barrel arbor itself will pop the lid off when we push down on it. And you sort of snap there as it popped off. So now we can take the lid off. Take the lid off here. And there's our mainspring. And this mainspring is real dark colored. This may be one of the old style steel mainsprings. I'm not sure because it looks almost coppery colored, but that may be a lubricant or something that was put in there. Let's pull it out and look at it. I want to extract the arbor first before I pull the spring out, because I need to get the arbor separated from the spring, and I need to be careful to get that out of there without. I need to get it out of there without the spring, because if I pull it out with the spring may come flying out, and if it does, the arbor is going to go flying across the room. We don't want that to happen, so I'm going to hold on to the barrel with my fingers over the spring so that it won't come out, and work on loosening the arbor from the spring. There we go. Came right out. There's our barrel arbor. The arbor is what actually turns to tighten the spring when you wind the watch. The ratchet wheel turns the arbor, which then tightens the spring. So when the spring is wound, it's tightened up around the center, and when it's unwound, it's loosened around the edges of the barrel. So now let's go ahead and pull this spring out with our tweezers here. That is weird. That looks like it's a strangely colored spring. Real tangled mess when it popped out. This spring, I think, is shot because you can see it's set into a coil. And that's not the way it should look. A healthy mainspring should look something like this one. A healthy mainspring is going to have a tight coil at one end where it goes around the arbor, but then it's going to expand out into a long, gentle S-curve. So that's what a good mainspring should look like. This mainspring, because it's set into this tight coil, will not provide any power to the watch. That's one of the reasons the watch was running so slow and had such poor amplitude. So we're going to replace that mainspring. I've never seen one that had kind of a coppery color like that though before. It's really strange. I've seen steel ones that had a bluish color because they were blued to prevent rust, but not a copper colored one. So there's our empty mainspring barrel. The next things we need to do before we take off the balance cock and the balance wheel, there is the Incabloc jewels on the top of the balance cock, and there's also one on the bottom of the main plate, and those are the upper and lower balance jewels. The balance jewels have these Incabloc system jewels. It's a two-part jewel for each one. there's a jewel that the spindle goes through, kind of like that, and then there's a cap jewel that the spindle end rides against. The cap jewel is held on by these little brass springs that they call them lyre springs because they look like a lyre, the ancient Greek musical instrument. And to remove those, you don't actually remove the spring, it hinges upward. You have to loosen one end of it. One end of it is stuck into this groove here, so you have to pop one side out and then pop the other side out using thin pointed tweezers. And once you do that, then you can hinge it open and remove the jewel. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I'm going to do the actual loosening, I think, off camera because it's hard for me to see it well enough to do this because they're so tiny, but I'll show you how it hinges open then once we do that. Here you can see I've got one side of the spring unlatched and the other side is still latched. Now I'll go ahead and unlatch the other side. Both sides are now unlatched and we can hinge it open now. Okay, now you can see it's hinged open and you can see the jewels underneath it. The jewels will probably come out together with the cap jewel stuck to the lower jewel, and then we can separate them later. And we'll have to do the same thing on the bottom of the base plate with the bottom jewels. Okay, here's what it looks like without the jewels in place, and you can see the upper end of the balance staff sticking up through there. And we'll see the lower end of the balance staff sticking down through the one in the base plate when we take that jewel off as well. I've gone ahead and closed the spring and relatched it before I do anything else. It's a good idea to do that before you clean the parts because the springs are delicate, and if they're just kind of waving around unlatched, they can get broken off, and they're a pain to replace. So it's a good idea to go ahead and close it and relatch it before you clean the parts. And I'll do the same thing with the one on the bottom of the movement as well. The dial side of the movement has two other cap jewels that also had to be removed. There's the cap jewel for the lower balance staff that we talked about, which has one of the springs because it's an Incabloc style jewel system. And I've already loosened the spring here, so I'll open that up in a minute and take out the jewels. But there's also two other cap jewels here, and these are just held on by screws instead of being held on by springs. One of these is for the third wheel, and one of them is for the escape wheel. So we'll go ahead and remove those as well. And they've got little notches on the sides of their metal holders for the jewels that make it easy to pop them out with the tweezers. Although it looks harder than it is since I'm trying to do it under the camera. Yeah, it fell underneath the movement. I'll have to pick it up in a minute off the table. I just dropped that one into my parts tray. And this one's on the table to pick up. Carefully so that I don't lose it. You have to be really careful with these springs not to break them. Okay, I've got the lower balance staff jewel springs hinged open too. So I'll go ahead and pull those out with the tweezers, and then the only thing to do now then would be to remove the balance. And I think with this one, I'm just going to leave the balance on the base plate when we clean it. That way it minimizes any risk of damaging the hairspring. And you can see the opened up spring and the lower balance staff sticking through the hole now without the jewels in place. I'm going to go ahead and close the spring. I went ahead and closed the Incabloc spring on the base plate just like I did on the one for the balance cock. I am going to have to remove the balance cock and the balance wheel. I've forgotten that we also have to remove the pallet fork and the pallet fork bridge, which are underneath the balance wheel. There's no way to get them out without removing the balance wheel, so that's what we're going to do next. The balance cock is held on by a single screw, which I've already removed, and now we just need to pop it up, and it's going to have to be kind of pried up carefully too. There's a notch there right underneath it that you can use to put a screwdriver in there for that purpose. And you got to be careful when you do this so that you don't pop it up too hard and bend the pivots on the balance staff, although that is minimized by taking the jewels out first, since there's a lot more space in there for the balance staff to move around. Okay. There's a couple of pins that stick up from the base plate of the movement, or no, actually they stick down from the balance cock into holes in the base plate of the movement that help align it, so those have to be pried out, and that's why it sticks on there so much. Now that we've got it loose, we can just lift it up carefully. There we go. Lifts right up. Okay, now the only thing that we need to remove now is there's one screw that holds on this piece here, which is the pallet fork bridge, and that holds the top pivots for the pallet fork, and then the pallet fork is down there. We need to lift out after that. Okay, the pallet bridge is held on by two pegs that stick up from the movement base plate, and then that one screw. And I've taken the screw out. There's a place that we can stick a screwdriver in there to pop it up that we're going to make use of because it's stuck on there pretty tight. If you look there, you can see the spot we're going to stick the screwdriver under. And there it goes. Now I can pick it up with the tweezers and remove it, and the pallet fork. The pallet fork just lifts out. Our pallet fork here is unusual because this one has transparent jewels, and most of them I've seen have the normal reddish purple color jewels. I'm not sure why that is, if they're just not dyed, because I know they're artificial jewels. I'm not sure if they're a different chemical composition or if they're just not colored, not dyed, but for some reason they are transparent on this movement. The Andre Bouchard watch that I worked on had the same transparent pallet jewels as well. Okay, the entire movement is now disassembled. All we got left is just a bare base plate, so we are ready to clean the parts. I'm not going to make a video showing the cleaning of the parts on this one because watch parts are pretty much all cleaned the exact same way. I made a video of the cleaning process for the Andre Bouchard watch, which uses the same movement. So I will put a link to that in the description for this so that you can watch that if you're interested in the cleaning process. And I'll have that video in the playlist for this one as well. And then once I get done cleaning it, then we'll come back with the next video. We'll be showing the reassembly and lubrication process.